This is the end. And when I say the end, it's the end of the system as we knew it. And I wish I could tell you exactly what the new system will look like, but it's going to look a lot different than life as we knew it. You're on your own. I mean, that's where we're headed. There will be a spell where nothing works. I mean, it may be that cell phones go down also. It may be that the internet goes down also. The power grid goes down. Your fresh water supply goes down. You dial 911 and nobody answers. Your house is on fire and there's no police department. You need to think or have the mindset that you are on your own.
Hi, I'm Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and this is the Miles Franklin Weekly Special for October 25th through November 1st, 2022, while supplies last. This week we feature two silver specials. First, we have 90% silver at $11.49 over spot. Prized for its recognizability, liquidity, and easy divisibility, constitutional or junk silver is also in short supply. As Andy Schechtman says, they're not making any more of it. Our 90% silver is mixed, meaning it may come as dimes, quarters, or both, but it has the same silver content either way and is available at $11.49 over spot while this batch lasts. Our second silver special is 100-ounce PAMP Swiss silver bars. Known for their quality and artistry, PAMP makes these IRA-eligible bars 3 nines fine and with their own individual serial numbers. They come 5 to a box and are available at only $4.59 over spot. Our number for all orders is 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're honored to have this widely followed guest. Bill Holter is an analyst of many markets, including the precious metals, where he comments frequently to a wide audience. He joins us this Tuesday, October 25th, 2022. Bill, thanks for coming back on Liberty and Finance.
Thank you for having me, Dunnigan.
We'll apologize in advance for the quality of our data signal. I understand your location is very remote, and we're doing the best we can with the communication connection that we've got, so people please bear with us. I think you'll find the content well worth your time. Bill, one of the things we wanted to talk about in this environment where a lot of investable gold and silver are running short and running out in some cases, people are concerned about should they pay up for the much higher premiums that are really running away on U.S. minted products. I know you have had a pretty strong opinion about that in the past, so I wanted to get your latest thinking. Is there any limit to that calculus that you would make when deciding between domestically U.S. produced investable bullion coins like American Gold Eagles, American Silver Eagles, so-called junk silver, Constitution 90% silver, or pre-33 numismatic gold coins versus any other investable gold products available in the world? Depending on how far the premiums separate, they're getting to be more extreme than we've ever seen them before, the separation. Help people understand your rationale behind that.
Generally, people want the coin of their own realm. And the reasoning behind that, if there ever is a confiscation, it would be difficult for the U.S. Mint to sell you Eagles this week and then next week say you have to turn them in. If there's a confiscation, generally you would see bars, generics, and foreign sovereigns confiscated prior to local or the coin of the realm. And yeah, you're correct. As far as Eagles are concerned, you're looking at almost 100% premium at this point. You might want to try to barbell that if you're looking for metal. I'm partial to junk silver as opposed to Eagles, and the reason being $1.38 of junk, so basically 14 dimes equals 1 ounce. And in a system down scenario, that gives you 14 transactions versus 1. In other words, you could barter for eggs or gasoline or what have you. So you might want to barbell your approach, do some junk and do some 100-ounce bars or a lower premium product. But still, even with 100-ounce bars, you're looking at $4 or $5 over spot. So the premiums are rising across the board. And this is really not much of a surprise. I mean, we had talked about, probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, that at some point in time, the COMEX, the LBMA, the paper markets would become irrelevant. And we used an example in gold. You could see it $10 offered on COMEX with no bids, and you could see it many, many thousands of dollars bid and no offers. And that's where we're heading at this point. The premiums are exploding across the board. And I think what this is, it's the beginning of the irrelevancy of the paper markets.
Yeah, about my sense of time recently has been totally messed up since COVID and the lockdowns and the stay homes and the everythings. But it feels to me like a couple of years since you were saying, when is now, talking to people about if they're asking when should I exit the mainstream 401k 60-40 stock portfolio, stocks and bonds, and get into tangible assets. I think your point back then was that, look, there's availability right now, and you don't know what there will be about availability in the future. And secondly, you don't know when there's going to come this economic event that's going to make suddenly everybody else want to do what you're currently wanting to do, so do it now. I think that was your point, but could you talk to us about the timing of people making their move? Is it too late for people to get started at this? If 2 years ago, when was now?
Well, now you're watching these things unfold in real time before your eyes. Is it too late? No, you can still do it. When you cannot source metal, then obviously it's too late. Once you can no longer source metal, then what good is your fiat currency?
That question is one that I think a lot of people have turned upside down in their heads. We've been conditioned for a couple of generations to think, what good is this, what a pet rock, worthless barbaric relic of gold. I can't use it at the grocery store, etc. But if you would please expand on that question you just asked about what good is your fiat if you can't exchange it for gold?
Well, that part is obvious. I mean, if fiat is not accepted for gold, then it's worthless. And you made mention of you can't go to the grocery store and use gold or silver. I guess my response to that would be where we're headed, and I think it's directly in front of us. I mean, we're 17, 18 days away from the U.S. running out of diesel fuel. What kind of world will we be living in if there's no diesel fuel to run trains, trucks, etc.? In other words, the supply chain is going to completely break down. So I'm going to bounce that back to you. You're saying you can't use gold or silver in a grocery store, and I'm going to tell you at some point in the not too distant future, your grocery store is not going to have anything in there for you to buy anyway.
That's one of the concerns that's had us beating the drum since 2013. Our channel used to be called Reluctant Preppers, and that whole idea about being prepared, and the saying being, I'd rather be 7 years early than 1 day late. My wife and I were recently, just last month, down in Florida looking for a homestead, and Hurricane Ian showed up. And we had about a 2-day notice to get prepared, because they keep saying, oh, it's going to go this way or it's going to go that way. Well, it turned out it went right over us. But luckily we were far inland, not near the coast, so not in any risk of flooding. But the point that I'm trying to get to is we were suddenly finding ourselves, even though we'd spent years preparing at our home base, there we were away from home and suddenly had to go buying a bunch of stuff, at the last minute, rain suits and bottled water and enough food to get by and that sort of thing. So, it's a big deal if you postpone your preparedness steps until there's nothing to be had. And that's a whole new topic you're introducing. So you introduce it within the context of currency versus real money, the intrinsic value, things that have intrinsic value, but you're pointing out another problem which is coming, which is basically the shortage and outage of many, many essentials and the necessity for preparedness. You live fairly remote where you are. Can you talk to people about principles that you've followed over the years on preparedness in general?
Yeah, basically, you need to have the mindset of being as self-sufficient as possible. Do you have a water source? We have 2 separate wells, and we've put in a hand pump. So no matter what, I will have water. We've put in 2 separate solar projects. I do have generators as a backup to that. We live with a food source as far as a pond is concerned. There's food source as far as wild game, wild hogs. I mean, you name it. And I would imagine that will be thinned out pretty quickly. I mean, you're going to hear a lot of gunfire if grocery stores close. You out in the country, you will hear a lot of gunfire. But I mean, do the best you can. Stock back on canned goods. Stock back on rice, beans, heavy stuff. How long is this going to last? Is it going to last only 2 weeks, 2 months? I don't know. Maybe it'll last 6 months. Maybe it'll last 2 years. I don't know. But the whole idea is to try to be as self-sufficient as you possibly can, where you don't rely on others. And when I say others, I'm talking about grocery stores, a fire department, the police department. Plan on going for a spell. And again, I don't know how long it's going to be, but plan on a spell where you have no one to rely on other than yourself and the preparations you've already made.
Yeah, it was a little bit sobering when you mentioned you'll start to hear gunfire in the country. I think you'll maybe hear gunfire in the urban areas as well, but it'll be for a different reason. In the country, you're talking about people hunting varmints for food or whatever, trying to shoot wildlife for meat. And in the city, it can be just mobs looting and rioting and things like that.
Yeah, I think if you live in a city, it's a huge mistake, and I think your chances of survival are very low.
When people look at the current environment, you talked about we're seeing things unfold in real time. Viewers of this channel and our subscribers have been watching you and watching us for some time, and a lot of our guests, so they know what you're talking about when you say that. But what would you consider to be like the key signposts that you've observed in real time recently that convince you that we are hurtling towards the kind of crisis that you're describing?
Oh, that's pretty simple. Just look at credit markets all across the world. Interest rates have exploded. I mean, we're now well above 4% on the yield curve in the U.S. And it's important to understand that interest rates, if you look in the past, every time the Fed has raised interest rates, they've broken something. This time around, we are, from a systemic standpoint, we're more over-levered than any time in history, bar none. And now they're raising rates more aggressively than any time in history. And you're watching the credit markets literally melt down. As interest rates go up, bond prices go down. And the bonds, the credit, U.S. Treasuries, those are the foundation for the entire system. Now, getting back to raising rates aggressively on the most over-levered system in all of history, what would you expect to happen? People can't refinance. A year ago, or not even a year ago, January 1st, I think interest rates on a 30-year mortgage were 3.25%. Now they're over 7%. So if you qualified for $1 million house at the beginning of the year, now maybe you qualify for a $500,000 house. The point is, higher interest rates discount asset values, and everything is borrowed against. Everything has all collateral is already encumbered. So there's no opportunity to refinance at lower rates. At this point, there is no opportunity to refinance at all. So what I'm getting at is the higher rates are going to blow up, pop, whatever term you want to use, the debt bubble. And we have lived through an everything bubble where everything has gone up, and it's gone up based or by the use of credit. Now we're seeing the other side of the sword, and it's a very sharp edge.
You talked to us last time about how many times credit is used to do the simplest things that we take for granted in our daily lives. You mentioned, like, if you go buy a loaf of bread at the store, I forget if you said 10 or 20 or 50 uses of credit that had to happen in order for that to get there because of the truck and the fuel and the store and everything along the way, the wheat and so on. Help people understand the way that you look at it when there's a strain that can result in illiquidity, a freezing, a lockup in the credit system, how that will immediately affect ordinary people's lives?
For instance, with that loaf of bread, let's say that there's a dozen different uses of credit. If any one of those dozen uses of credit becomes unavailable, there's no loaf of bread. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. It's not. It's like a chain. If one of the links breaks, the chain is broken in half and it doesn't work any longer. And that's the way the supply chain works. That's the way it works because every single use or every single operation or part of the final product depends on credit. And if credit's not available, the product doesn't get manufactured or brought to market.
So it sounds like what you're saying is any type of significant strain or dysfunction or breakdown in the credit system will impact somewhere in the supply chain, and you will get disruptions and outages and unavailability of things that we take for granted right now. And you mentioned that one of the remedies that you use for that is for preparing and stocking up ahead of time. Any other preparatory approaches that you recommend for people?
Yeah, and I actually started doing this a couple years ago. If you have the means, let's say you've done things like secured your power supply, your water, things like that. You may want to buy spare parts for your air conditioners or your heaters, or if you have well pumps, have a spare. Be able to totally rebuild a well house. The lead time, the lag time on some of these items is 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. So if you order it now, you may not get it for 6 months. I ordered a hand pump, I think it was October, or just a little over a year ago, September, October, and I didn't get that, I don't think, until May or June. And once it was on my property, I just had it installed maybe a month ago. But once it's on property, you will be able to find labor, or if you know how to do it yourself, you'll be able to get it done. But you can't get it done if you don't have the parts. So it's a good idea to go through just even things like car batteries, tires, have some jugs of gasoline stored back. Some quarts of oil, just stuff that you know that you're going to use. Buy them now. And besides, you're buying them now, it's going to be cheaper than later.
Yeah, it's a good point. In fact, that's a phenomenon we should talk about in a minute, about the self-fulfilling prophecy of runaway price inflation when people start to realize that. But folks, if you are going to store gasoline, make sure you put stabilizer chemical in there so that it can actually be good within 6 to 9 or 12 months and not go bad within one season. Okay, so before we get into the next question, let's touch on this point that you just brought up about some people call it the crack up boom in Austrian economics. It's when people realize that the currency is going down the drain for one reason or another, and real things are going to be where it's at. So they try to get into real things before the other guy, and that drives up prices even faster than they would have been otherwise. Can you tell us about what your expectations and observations are around that?
Yeah, a perfect example are silver and gold. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in the last 3 to 6 months people have contacted me and said, Bill, I want to buy gold, I want to buy silver, I want to do it today, and I want the money out of my account today. That's not so much for fear of the dollar collapsing as opposed to a fear of the banking system collapsing, but it will get to the point where there's going to be fear of my dollar's not going to buy anything. I need to get rid of it now. And that's why you're seeing these warehouses get cleaned out. That's why you're seeing the premiums on gold and silver rise so rapidly. It's a function of people saying, I want out of my dollars, I want out of my bank account, and I want to do it now. And there's a sense of urgency.
Very much what I've experienced as well. In fact, my wife and I having same conversations like that. You've been talking about two different paths that both lead perhaps to the same endpoint. One is that there may be this black swan major systemic event, whether it's a who knows what, a banking lockup, or whether it's a another emergency that emerges out of who knows where, like the COVID crisis did, or something else like that, whether it's a war, whether it's whatever. So there's this potential of a big bad event that's going to happen and suddenly be used as the excuse for why the system is falling apart, or maybe the system just is that fragile that it couldn't handle the shock of such an event. But you've also touched on just now a second thing that is happening right now, and that is the draining of the major metals exchanges, COMEX, LBMA, even some of the major ETFs like SLV, et cetera. And even in the absence of a huge black swan event, where are we headed, and what kind of a time trajectory are we on, where we just can't keep on keeping on with these like lower prices on metals, but then running out of metals at the same time?
That's really hard to say as far as the when part of it. I would suspect that we will see some type of event, and then they point the fingers at that event and say, well, this is why it happened. There was plenty of gold, there was plenty of silver. And when I say event, I'm talking about a false flag. And I am on record, and we're still exactly 2 weeks out now from the U.S. elections. I am on record saying, and I still believe at this point, that there is slightly less than a coin flip chance that we even have elections. And I say that because those who are in power do not want to lose power, lose control. And it looks to me like there will be a huge red wave, far beyond the amount that can be cheated or altered in elections. So I think those in power do not want to give up power, and the best way to do that is to have something happen that would cancel elections. And also, just look what came out over this weekend. Putin's gone to all the Western leaders and talking about Ukraine lighting up a tactical nuke, and then it goes back and forth. No, you're going to do it. No, you're going to do it. Just the fact that they're talking about it, it's scary as hell. And that's one out of maybe 100 or more than 100 potential false flags out there. You have no idea what it could be. It could be aliens. Who knows?
Or even closer to home, a cyber attack that would shut down banking or shut down the internet, that sort of thing. And certainly then, how can the ordinary person possibly know the truth when it's being told, oh, this is who is to blame for that?
Right, exactly.
So back to the question about the state of the metals availability, what are your analyses telling you about the trajectory that we're on? We certainly know, for example, with the U.S. domestic strategic petroleum stockpile, that's being depleted, and it may be depleted within a month to 3 months. What do you see about the rate of depletion of the major metals exchanges, and what kind of, if things remain unaltered on that flow, what kind of progress report you'll be having, as we go into end of fourth quarter and beginning of first quarter?
I think by the end of fourth quarter or beginning of first quarter, I think you'll be looking at whatever happened in the rearview mirror. I would be surprised if there's still metal available for fiat by the end of the year.
It's a sobering thought. It's a wake-up call to a lot of people who've been sitting on the sidelines waiting for, and this is another thing maybe you've heard from clients, they keep saying, well, if there's going to be a market crash, then everything should go down together and I'll do some bargain shopping for metals at that time. How do you address that strategy when people maybe haven't even gotten started yet, but they're waiting because they're waiting for a crash that will give them sale prices on everything?
Well, that's a pretty risky strategy. You're basically betting that you're going to be able to get yourself in place after an event has happened. After an event has happened, it's too late. And where we're headed now, this is not a cyclical event. We've been through cyclical events. Look at 2008, 2009. Everything crashed, including gold and silver. However, and I don't know if you were in the market at that time, but silver dropped from, I don't know, $17 to $8 or $9 in the cash markets, but you were not able to buy any silver below $15. So, looking at your TV or your computer screen and it tells you currently silver is $19, well, good luck with that. Good luck finding silver really under $24. So just understand, this is a secular event. This is the end of Western Empire is where we're headed. This is not a cyclical event where we have some bad times and then it's off to the races to the upside again. This is the end. And when I say the end, it's the end of the system as we knew it. And I wish I could tell you exactly what the new system will look like, but it's going to look a lot different than life as we knew it.
For people who want to make sure that they're staying aware so that they can be better prepared as we go through these very volatile times. We've had a number of people on. I mean, Rick Rule's interview a couple times ago was buckle up, volatility ahead, on and on. People are talking about you haven't seen anything yet in terms of the impact, the destructive impact. Michael Pinto, Gregor Manarino, others are saying that the Fed's impact on the market, these events that you're talking about impacting the market, you haven't seen anything yet. As people are wanting to prepare for that, where can they stay connected to get insight and be aware along the way?
Listening to people like you, listening to podcasts. I mean, read. There's plenty of websites where you can read truth or sanity. I mean, I don't really even know how to respond to that.
Well, where can people follow your work? I mean, if they search by your name, they'll find you're interviewing around, but how can they follow you?
Right. If you want to reach me directly, you can reach me at my email address is bholter@hotmail.com.
And otherwise, you do interview widely, so people will find you on channels in addition to ours. Folks, if you want to make sure that you don't miss a single interview here with Bill or with any of our guests, make sure you go to libertyandfinance.com. Under subscribe, put in your name, your email address, click submit. You're going to get a confirming email. You need to respond to that confirming email. Once you do, you're in. You'll get one email a day, just one, in your inbox with our latest interview and any specials, including any interviews we do with Bill. And Bill, I guess you think a lot about things, I guess, at a broad level, and your feet are on the ground. If there's a way of thinking about the kind of times that we're entering into that you'd like people to adopt, a manner of thinking, a philosophy of thinking, how would you describe that?
You're on your own. I mean, that's where we're headed. There will be a spell where nothing works. I mean, it may be that cell phones go down also. It may be that the internet goes down also. The power grid goes down. Your fresh water supply goes down. You dial 911 and nobody answers. Your house is on fire and there's no police department. Basically, you need to think or have the mindset that you are on your own with everything. And I mean, if you're the type of person who has not stocked up food and you go to the grocery store 3 or 4 times a week to buy 2 meals, buy food for the next 2 meals or 3 meals, put some food back, because there is going to be a spell where there's no food available other than food that's locally grown by farmers, ranchers, what have you.
Yeah, that's another point we didn't talk about here. It's not entirely that you're on your own, but you better figure out your food security plan, and that may include establishing relationships with local producers if you haven't already. That's one of the things that we've talked about with some of our other guests, including Joel Salatin, a farmer from the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia, about food security, absolutely critical, and storing up. That's Paul Helinski has interviewed with us on inexpensive, affordable ways to store up food. You don't have to go for these super expensive pails of stuff that's not very nutritious and is very, very expensive. So great food for thought. So Bill, always appreciate your visits here with us, and we know that you have your eyes on the markets, you have your eyes on realistic and practical preparedness steps. Always grateful for your visiting here on Liberty and Finance. My pleasure, Dunnigan. Thank you.
Miles Franklin Precious Metals is one of America's oldest and most trusted bullion dealers. Miles Franklin is A+ rated and accredited by the Better Business Bureau, licensed and bonded, and has 0 complaints ever registered. Here at Liberty and Finance, We are licensed brokers with Miles Franklin. To order, simply call us, discuss your needs, and we will let you know our live inventory, prices, and availability, and lock in your order over the phone. Once your order is locked, the price is held for you regardless of market fluctuations, and the metals are reserved for you awaiting your settled payment. Within 1 business day of ordering, you will receive an email invoice detailing the order and payment instructions. Miles Franklin accepts payments by bank wire, ACH or electronic check, money order, check mailed priority mail, and cryptocurrency. The fastest forms of payment are bank wire and cryptocurrency. Upon settled payment, metals will ship out within 3 to 5 business days. You will receive tracking information via email. Domestic shipping charges are $15 for any order under 500 ounces of silver or 10 ounces of gold. For orders larger than that, domestic shipping is free. The package will be double boxed, fully insured, and labeled discreetly, with no indication of the contents inside. For your privacy, the name Miles Franklin will not even be on the package. To talk to myself, Elijah, my brother Kaiser, or my father Dunnigan, call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237.